What if Qui-Gon reached out to Anakin on Mustafar? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Anakin takes a deep breath as he prepares to enter the CIS headquarters on Mustafar. Although he doesn't expect much resistance, he hesitates. He can't shake off the feeling of wrongness in his stomach. He remembers what he did in the Jedi Temple and tells himself that was more difficult.
This is different. This is easier.
Is it now? Anakin is greeted by Qui-Gon Jin, smiling sadly at him, his spectral form looking identical to when he was alive.
Qui-Gon? What sort of trick is this?
No trick. Just an old man trying to convince you to do what is right.
You're dead.
In death, I have only become more powerful. But that's beside the point. My job is to guide you and prevent you from making this mistake. Do not kill the CIS leaders, Anakin.
How could you say that after the things they've done? A quick death would be a mercy for them.
That is the darkness speaking through you. You do not believe that. You do not want to do that.
You don't know that. You don't know anything about me.
Undeterred, Qui-Gon steps closer and taps Anakin's forehead with his finger. Suddenly, a dozen memories run through Anakin's mind. The murder of the Tusken Raiders, the assault on the Jedi Temple, and so many other moments when he gave in to the dark side.
I know more than you realize. I know you've indulged in the darkness and let it run wild. And I know you felt empty after. Tell me, what makes you think this moment will be any different?
His knees buckle underneath him as a ship appears and lands before him. Padme jogs out, but to her surprise, she sees that Anakin hasn't done anything yet. When he looks up at her, all he can say is he couldn't do it. When Obi-Wan follows a moment later, Anakin can sense the suspicion in his master, but he still asks for their help. He still plans on storming the CIS chambers, but not to murder the leaders. Instead, he plans on forcing their surrender. While surprised, Padme agrees. Obi-Wan is more reluctant, as the memories of Anakin's murder of the Jedi are still fresh, but this is enough for the young Jedi to step down and confront the leaders. Newt Gunray is initially relieved to see Anakin, until he hears what Anakin proposes. He commands that the CIS lay down their weapons and surrender to Padme. When he emerges, the Council is prepared to accept Padme's terms of unconditional surrender, starting with the deactivation of all droid forces. While Obi-Wan takes them into custody, Anakin secretly sends Padme coordinates to meet him as he enters his starfighter and disappears into the night. Obi-Wan soon follows after, knowing that he'll be killed on sight. By the time Padme arrives to pick Anakin up, he's surprised to see the senator there. She explains that the CIS had secretly contacted her, offering unconditional surrender. Together, she has now ended the war. This means Palpatine can no longer execute them without looking like a tyrant. Reluctantly, he takes the leaders back to Coruscant. Many corporations are stripped of their power and government representation, allowing the Empire to take over their holdings and resources. Padme, meanwhile, is hailed as a hero for stopping the war, but she does not linger to celebrate her fame. Soon, she resigns her position as senator. At first, people assumed this was due to her impending birth, but after the twins were born, she disappeared off the face of the galaxy. She ends up on Tatooine, where she meets up with Anakin. He explains that after he left Mustafar, he received a vision from Qui-Gon Jin to go here to train. When the two aren't working and raising their children, Anakin spends his time training. Qui-Gon continues to appear as a Force ghost, teaching Anakin to harness the living Force. Tatooine proves to be the ideal training ground, as the Jedi's biggest challenge is his emotions. This place brings back many strong memories within Anakin, both good and bad, so it allows Qui-Gon to teach him how to control himself. With each memory, thought, and emotion, Qui-Gon has Anakin meditate on it. He shows him how to harness those feelings, and then let them go instead of holding on to them.
This land wasn't always barren. It was once lush and verdant, but it was destroyed by hubris and anger. And this leaves you standing alone, surrounded by nothing. That is the dark side.
So what can I do?
Learn. Remember that no matter where you stand on this planet, you are never truly alone. That is what the living force is about. Meditate and close your eyes. Feel the life forms around you.
Although Anakin can't see any life around them, Qui-Gon insists he tries. It takes weeks of patience and concentration, but Anakin connects to the Force. He can feel the creatures skittering under the sand or flying above, those so small that he might not be able to see them. This is just the beginning. With this new knowledge, he teaches Anakin to tap into it, to allow their energies to flow through him, and to let his energy flow through them. It takes months of hard work and effort, but soon Anakin begins to unlock the mysteries of the living force. He discovers new abilities and enhances his existing abilities, but he doesn't keep them idle. Tatooine remains a hotbed of crime even after the Clone Wars, and Anakin tests his powers on local gangs and slavers. Anakin quickly becomes a force to be reckoned with, taking out dozens of criminals in his efforts. This doesn't escape Palpatine's attention, as he never gave up search for Skywalker. Although once he wanted him to become his apprentice, his refusal to eliminate the CIS has now put him in a difficult position. Although he was still the ruler of the Empire, he lacked an apprentice to train. Now he is only interested in destroying Anakin and punishing him for his failure. His actions on Tatooine convince the Emperor that he's hiding there and contacts some old allies to deal with him. While this happens, Anakin continues with his meditation on Tatooine, letting it sharpen his connection to the Force. As he meditates, he feels a surge of pain lancing across his body. He feels the pain of hundreds and hears an explosion in the distance. Looking up, Anakin spots chaos in a cluster of farms mixed with faint cries that are soon carried off by the wind. His heart leaps into his chest as he remembers Padme is working there. Taking his lightsaber, he hurries to the heart of the chaos as several Starhopper fighters zoom overhead, laying down blaster fire on the unsuspecting farmers. On the ground, Zagirian slavers march through the smoke, carrying blasters, nets, whips, and electrostaffs. They grab whoever they can, farmers, merchants, and mechanics, to drag back to their ships. As Anakin sees this, his lightsaber flies into his hands, and he leaps into the thick of the action. His lightsaber skills remain sharp as ever, blocking off blaster fire and throwing aside enemies with the Force. Those who manage to get close rush at him with staffs and whips. But their attacks are clumsy compared to Anakin, who beats them aside and throws them back. A few smarter fighters rush past him to attack easier targets, but a larger Zagirian appears and holds up his whip. Anakin recognizes this one, Prime Minister Atai.
It's been too long, Skywalker. Surrender now.
Prime Minister, I'm going to enjoy this. Atai cracks his whip in a trio of quick strikes, but Anakin blocks each one with his lightsaber. Surprised, the Prime Minister lashes out from the side, though Anakin manages to sidestep these attacks. He then lunges forward and tackles Atai to the ground. As he tumbles, Anakin tries to drive his lightsaber down, but the Zagirian rolls aside and pulls out his blaster. He squeezes a few shots that Anakin quickly deflects. He follows up by pulling the blaster from his grip and leveling the lightsaber against Atai's throat.
It appears you've lost. Really now? You might want to look again.
He glances out from one of the burning farms where the Zagirians had run into. As they emerge, one of them holds Padme by the neck and another has his two children, screaming and kicking their legs around. Anakin's eyes widen as he stares at them. His anger starts to burn as he glares at them. But Atai notices it and gestures for the guards to hold a blaster against them.
Careful now, Jedi. One wrong move and your family dies.
Anakin hesitates, his gaze flickering between Padme and Atai. He knew Atai's reputation.
Let her go, and I'll go with you.
Atai smirked, nodding to his guards. Two of them seized Anakin, binding his wrists in energy cuffs that sent jolts of pain through his body. He gritted his teeth, refusing to show any weakness as they released his family. They try to run towards him, but he shakes his head. Anakin tries to resist before feeling the butt of a blaster slamming against him. When he wakes up, his eyes widen as he finds himself on the metal hull of the Death Star. The Zagirian guards at his cell smile as they pull out a holodisc and the image of Palpatine emerges.
Ah, young Skywalker. How nice of you to join us.
You. What do you want? I thought it was clear I was not going to join you.
And what makes you think I still want you as my apprentice? You are a traitor and a weakling, but you still will help me with my plans.
If that plan is going to help your face, I don't think there's much I can do.
He chuckles to himself before he feels a sudden surge of electricity course through his body. Anakin nearly falls over and notices the collar around his neck.
Don't worry. I have a job that even you cannot fail. I need someone welding panels on my new station. I think you can handle that.
The words send a chill down Anakin's spine as he realizes he's to become a slave to the Empire.
I offered to make you something, but you had no interest in that. So, instead, I shall bring you back to drudgery.
True to his word, Palpatine immediately puts Anakin at work assembling the Death Star. He has him installing panels, welding components, and serving the crew there. However, to ensure that he won't escape, any mistake or sign of resistance from Anakin is taken out on the slaves surrounding him. This was an ingenious move on Palpatine's part, as although Anakin's strong connection to the living force allows him to draw on the strength of others, he also feels their weaknesses and pain. All around him, he's surrounded by either the cruelty of the Zagirians and Imperials, or the fear and pain of the slaves. Anakin is barely able to prevent it from overwhelming him. When he has a moment to himself, he meditates and tries to calm down, connecting with the beings around the galaxy. While it helps keep him calm, he realizes it does little to free him. That is, until he gets an idea. After a long day of work, Anakin collapses in his cell, his exhaustion threatening to get the better of him. But rather than succumb to it, he forces himself to sit up and take a deep breath. He begins to calm himself. Anakin channels all his remaining energy to try and connect to the galaxy once again. Rather than forming broad connections as usual, he focuses himself on a specific figure, trying to pinpoint a familiar presence. Anakin feels his body growing lighter as he feels his presence shifting around as it connects with the Force. He searches for a familiar presence, and soon a figure materializes before him. Obi-Wan, sitting cross-legged inside his hut on Dagobah. The Jedi is just a bit surprised to see him, but then frowns as he sees Anakin's presence.
Anakin, what do you want?
Obi-Wan, I need your help. Palpatine is building something. He's kept me imprisoned along with countless others. I think it's some sort of weapon.
Anakin, the last time I met with you, you nearly killed a room full of unarmed people. Before that, you murdered children. This is difficult to believe. How do I know this isn't some trick? A trap set by the Emperor?
I know I've made mistakes, Obi-Wan. I know I fell. But I can't do this alone. Please, you have to believe me. Qui-Gon's teachings, they changed me. If you don't believe me, then believe him.
Anakin, Qui-Gon's been dead.
He's gone but not forgotten. I think you've learned that too.
Obi-Wan's blood chills at that message. He was indeed learning about the living force as well, alongside Master Yoda. Together the two had journeyed to Dagobah to master these teachings, but he hadn't told anyone about it. He doesn't answer as Anakin's vision fades, but rather than stand up, Obi-Wan closes his eyes and concentrates, thinking back to his former master and remembering his teachings. Slowly he reaches out to the Force for him.
Master Qui-Gon, I've seen him. Anakin, he came to me, asking for help. But how can I trust him after everything he's done? After the destruction he caused?
Suddenly, the air around him swirls, and the dust particles take the form of Qui-Gon. Another set of footsteps appears as Yoda hobbles over to them.
Obi-Wan, I know the pain Anakin has brought to you, to the galaxy. But I also know the good that still resides within him. The fact that he was able to pull himself out of the darkness is proof of that. He was, and always will be, the chosen one. The path may have twisted, but we cannot abandon it.
Difficult to forgive, yes. But flawed this galaxy is. Even the greatest of Jedi, mistakes we have made. Bond to the living force we are. Yet even we stumble.
He's imprisoned, Master. He didn't say where, but I can sense his presence. Could this truly be his path to redemption?
I do not know, Obi-Wan. But you cannot let fear dictate your actions. Perhaps this is the Force trying to guide you.
Thank you, my master.
You've come so far, my old Padawan. I am so proud.
With their plan in motion, Yoda and Obi-Wan agree they need to help and head to Tatooine to recruit Padme's help. As they approach the series of farmsteads, they see them busy with activity, as farmers are busy not just rebuilding, but also setting up food as they prepare for a large dinner. Among them are Anakin's stepbrother, who keeps a watchful eye on Luke and Leia. When they enter Anakin's farm, they find Padme there with a surprising group of allies, Newt Gunray, Poggle the Lesser, and Wat Tambor. It was clear she was busy making moves on her own, as the group was clearly intense in negotiations. Padme glares at the trio, her eyes defiant.
I don't think I have to remind you that you three only stand here because of my husband's mercy. You three owe him a great debt, and it's time you repay it. This might be your only chance to make things right.
I don't like this. We're putting our lives on the line. The Emperor won't spare us a second time if he catches wind of this.
And if we don't act, none of us will survive.
General Kenobi is right. The Empire's reach grows every day. This is our chance to strike a blow against them, and maybe, just maybe, free Anakin. He spared you. Now you can return the favor.
What do you expect us to do?
Why not deploy the droids you've kept hidden away?
We have no such droids.
Come on. Do you truly expect us to believe that?
We have a small army and many of our older units. They will not make an ideal army to search for Skywalker.
We don't require an army for this search. I know where Anakin is. We'll use those droids to free him, but we'll need every bit of help you can muster to pull this off.
Poggle crackles and taps his cane on the ground.
Poggle says that he knows what station that might be. The Geonosians designed it, and we might have security codes that can get us aboard.
As their small transport approaches the Death Star, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Padme stand together, their eyes widening as they glimpse the massive Death Station. Once it is finished, it may be the size of a small moon. Obi-Wan realizes how desperate the situation is, and how Anakin is trying to warn him. As the codes are put in, he feels his breathing quickening as he waits to see whether they are accepted. To his relief, the screen flashes green, and they were allowed to land. They land on one of the hangar decks as the droids arm themselves. They are older units, left over from the Clone Wars, but spirited away to serve as the leaders of private armies. All around them, they find Wookiees, Geonosians, and other slaves slaving away as they assemble the Death Star. Suddenly, the droids surge forward. The stormtroopers are caught completely off guard and are unable to react quickly enough. Many are cut down, and others stumble aside, trying to return fire. As they scramble into cover, Yoda leaps above them with his lightsaber blazing as he lands behind them and cuts them down. While the stormtroopers focus on him, Padme and Obi-Wan run up to the slaves, destroying their bindings and collars. Wookiees roar and charge at stormtroopers barehanded, while Geonosians take to the air, plucking up crewmen and starting to lift them. A towering Wookiee picks up Padme and lifts her onto his shoulders. She raises a blaster above her head, rallying the slaves.
Today, we fight for freedom. Together, we will take back our lives and destroy this nightmare.
The slaves seem to rally around her words. They roar and raise their fists in the air as they pick up their blasters and makeshift weapons, rushing to the stormtroopers who hurry to engage them. Blaster fire ricochets off the walls as Wookiees roar and Geonosians shriek. The stormtroopers are now vastly outnumbered and overwhelmed as they call for reinforcements. Seeing Padme leading the slaves, Yoda breaks off and joins Obi-Wan as they head down to the detention block. As the uprising rages, they move through the chaos, sneaking past patrols who hurry to quell the uprising. This gives them a clear path to Anakin's cell. Obi-Wan deactivates the cell security and looks inside. There, Anakin sits meditating. He tries to take a few breaths, but opens his eyes as he sees them.
Obi-Wan. Yoda. I knew you'd come.
We're not leaving without you. There's a battle raging above, but we need to ensure this place doesn't remain a threat.
I have an idea. We need to get to the reactor.
Yoda and Obi-Wan fall into step after him as he leads the way. Anakin knows the path well, as he spent weeks working on this facility. As they approach the reactor chamber, Anakin runs to the controls and begins tapping on the console, working to overload the reactor. Slowly, the temperature begins to drop, but as he types, a shadow looms above them.
Anakin, look out!
He dives out of the way just in time as Palpatine leaps down, burying his lightsaber into the control console.
Anakin, you disappoint me. You had such potential, and now you throw it away for these relics.
With a sudden burst of speed, Palpatine lunges at them. The trio braces themselves as Palpatine appears in front of them and swings his lightsaber in a wide arc. All three of them stumble back, but Yoda is the first to recover, diving low and rushing at Palpatine. His blade flashes close to Palpatine's legs, forcing the Emperor to move cautiously to avoid slicing himself. Obi-Wan takes this chance to join him while Anakin flanks from the side. As Palpatine finally kicks Yoda back, he turns to face Obi-Wan. He slides and ducks under Obi-Wan's initial attacks, and then follows up with a swift kick. But the Jedi Master refuses to fall. Although he stumbles, he rights himself and thrusts his lightsaber forward. Palpatine moves back and catches Anakin in the corner of his eye. He ducks under the attack and hooks his leg under Obi-Wan and sends the two stumbling together. Palpatine stabs down at them, but Yoda appears and blocks the attack, letting the pair roll in opposite direction and rush at him again. Anakin throws a series of quick attacks against Palpatine that force him towards Obi-Wan's next attacks, his movements remaining as precise and elegant as ever. While he struggles against Anakin, Palpatine sees Obi-Wan as the weaker foe and turns to him. He feigns exhaustion and barely blocks his attack, inviting Obi-Wan to press deeper, until he suddenly halts his attack and throws a series of vicious cuts that drive Obi-Wan back, who nearly dies a dozen times. The reactor hums ominously around them as they clash. With Obi-Wan beaten back, Palpatine points towards the reactor and unleashes a burst of lightning that causes the controls to overload. Anakin's eyes widen as he sees the controls begin to fail. He rushes at Palpatine while Yoda leaps up and checks the controls. The controls spark and flash as Yoda tries to touch them, forcing him to stumble back.
Cannot control them, I can.
Anakin curses under his breath as he rushes at Palpatine. The Emperor laughs and prepares to meet him, thinking that Anakin's spirit is broken. But to his surprise, Anakin's attacks are much stronger as the Force flows through him, stronger than ever. Yoda leaps up and follows up, matching Anakin's strength with speed. Together, they begin to force Palpatine back. But Anakin suddenly steps away.
Buy me some time. I have an idea.
Yoda nods and lunges at the Emperor just as Obi-Wan gets to his feet, adding his steadiness to their next attack. Palpatine switches to the defensive, letting the two rush at him as he tries to bowl past them to reach Anakin. However, the young Jedi is standing between two of the massive reactors, his fingers tensing as he reaches out towards them, pulling the blocks down. Palpatine's eyes widen as the pillars groan under the pressure and start to bend. He takes a step forward, but stumbles as Yoda grabs onto his leg. Quickly kicking him aside, Palpatine leaps forward and tries to tackle him to the ground. But at the last second, Anakin suddenly sidesteps and raises his lightsaber to block his attack. Fueled by desperation, Palpatine attacks again and again, but Anakin is even faster, and none of his attacks land. As they lock lightsabers, Anakin glowers down at Palpatine, and the Emperor looks up as he sees not anger, but strength radiating through him. Strength of the entire force of the space station of people fighting for their freedom, for his freedom. Snarling, Palpatine aims at his head, but Anakin ducks and dives, his lightsaber right into Palpatine's stomach. The Emperor gasps, looking down at his injury. Anakin doesn't hesitate and shoves Palpatine over the edge as the pillar falls after him. But they do not have time to celebrate, as with the reactor's damage, it is only a matter of time until the station explodes. The trio quickly make their way out, returning to their ship. By the time they arrive, most of the slaves have managed to escape already on the ships docked. They board their shuttle and join them, just as the station collapses around them, turning the moon-sized Death Star into a miniature sun. But with the recording taken from the battle droids, they can show the Senate what Palpatine had been doing with the powers he was granted, taking slaves, building superweapons, and oppressing countless lives. With this report, a moderate faction comprising of senators like Mon Mothma and Bail Organa can take power, allying with the former CIS leaders. Together, a comprehensive reform plan is granted. While they do not grant the CIS leaders and corporations their former power, they make them some concessions as a reward, giving some assets back. In turn, they support the reformist faction, who advocate for demilitarization and transparency in the government. Meanwhile, Anakin and Padme return home to Tatooine to continue their efforts to help the people there while living their lives in peace. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.